What if the greatest cities of the ancient world didn't just fade away, but vanished so completely that their very existence feels like a dream? For centuries, travelers have whispered about places so magnificent, so rich with treasure and mystery, that they seem plucked from legend. Yet one man's words bridge the gap between myth and reality. Marco Polo. His legendary journey along the Silk Road didn't just open Europe's eyes to the wonders of the East. It immortalized 20 breathtaking cities that later slipped through the cracks of history, leaving behind only fragments of their stories. Today, we're setting out to rediscover them. Picture this: bustling marketplaces filled with spices from lands no European had ever seen, towers gleaming with gold, and harbors so vast they dwarfed anything in the medieval world. These were the cities Marco Polo described with awe in his writings, places like Kanbalu, the heart of Kublai Khan's empire, or the island of Java, rumored to hold more gold than the rest of the world combined. But here's the twist: many of these marvels have since disappeared, not just forgotten but swallowed by time, war, or the relentless march of nature. Some were buried under desert sands, others vanished beneath jungles so thick their very streets became myths. What happened to them, and why do their ghosts still haunt the pages of history? That's the mystery we're unraveling today. From the fabled walls of Xanadu, where Kublai Khan kept his legendary hunting palace, to the lost port of Zayton, once the gateway to all of China's riches, each of these 20 cities holds a piece of a puzzle that's waited 7 centuries to be solved. We'll follow Marco Polo's footsteps through crumbling ruins, decipher ancient maps, and piece together clues that hint at where these places might lie. Because this isn't just a story about lost gold or forgotten kings. It's about how entire civilizations can vanish, leaving behind only echoes, and how sometimes those echoes lead us to discoveries that rewrite history. So ready your imagination, we're about to journey into the unknown. Marco Polo wasn't just a traveler, he was a man who stepped into the unknown and returned with stories so extraordinary they reshaped the world's imagination. At just 17 years old, he left Venice with his father and uncle, setting off on a journey that would span more than 2 decades and cover over 15,000 miles. This wasn't a leisurely trip. It was an expedition through war-torn regions, across towering mountain ranges, and into kingdoms Europeans had only heard of in whispers. His path along the Silk Road wasn't just a trade route. It was a bridge between civilizations, and Marco Polo became its most famous storyteller. What made his account so remarkable wasn't just the distance he covered, but the access he gained. After years of travel, he arrived at the court of Kublai Khan, the Mongol ruler whose empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the gates of Europe. Polo didn't just observe from the sidelines, he served as an official in Khan's administration, giving him a front-row seat to the opulence and innovation of the East. He described cities with paved streets and efficient postal systems, technologies that seemed like magic to medieval Europeans. But here's where things get fascinating. While some of his claims, like paper money and coal burning, were later proven true, others, like islands inhabited by dog-headed men, stretched credibility. This mix of precise detail and wild exaggeration has kept historians debating for centuries. One of the most enduring mysteries is how much of Polo's writing was first-hand experience and how much was borrowed from other travelers. He claimed to have visited places like Java and Madagascar, yet some descriptions contain errors suggesting he never set foot there. Then there are the cities he described with such vividness, like Kinsay, with its 12,000 bridges, or the labyrinthine canals of Suzhou, that archaeologists have since unearthed evidence supporting his words. It's this duality that makes his work so captivating, a tapestry of fact and legend woven so tightly that even today we're still picking apart the threads. The legacy of his journey isn't just in the places he documented, but in the way he changed Europe's understanding of the world. Before Polo, maps of Asia were blank or filled with monsters. After his book, they began to take shape with real cities, trade routes, and cultures. His tales inspired generations of explorers, including a young Christopher Columbus, who carried a well-annotated copy of Polo's travels on his own voyages. Yet for all his influence, Marco Polo himself never saw the impact of his words. He died in 1324, his stories still dismissed by many as fables. It would take centuries for the world to realize how much truth lay hidden in those pages, truths we're still uncovering today. Among the dazzling cities Marco Polo described, few captured the imagination like the Golden Kingdom of Champa. Nestled along the coast of what is now Vietnam, this was a land where wealth seemed woven into the very fabric of life. Polo wrote of temples adorned with precious stones, palaces where elephants carried kings on gem-studded thrones, and markets overflowing with spices, ivory, and silks. But what made Champa truly extraordinary wasn't just its riches, it was its resilience. For over 1,000 years, this kingdom thrived as a cultural crossroads, blending Hindu influences from India with its own vibrant traditions. Its people, the Cham, were master builders and sailors, their towers reaching skyward while their ships connected distant ports from China to Arabia. Yet by the 15th century, Champa's golden age had crumbled. The jungles crept over its cities, and rival empires swallowed its territories. Today, the ruins of my son stand as silent witnesses, a labyrinth of red brick temples where carvings of gods and dancers still whisper of its glory. Archaeologists have uncovered traces of advanced water systems, intricate jewelry, and even ancient Sanskrit manuscripts. But here's the haunting question: why did a civilization so powerful simply fade away? The answers lie in a web of invasions, shifting trade routes, and perhaps even environmental changes. Neighboring kingdoms like Dai Viet slowly encroached, while the once bustling ports that fed Champa's wealth were eclipsed by new hubs. The real mystery, though, isn't just how Champa fell, it's how much of its story remains untold. Local legends speak of underground chambers filled with treasures, hidden to protect them from looters. Satellite imagery has revealed potential ruins beneath dense foliage, and recent digs have unearthed gold artifacts suggesting Polo's descriptions weren't exaggerated. Imagine what else might lie buried: lost libraries holding Cham scriptures, or shipwrecks off the coast still laden with cargo from their final voyages. Every broken statue or faded inscription is a clue waiting to be pieced together. What makes Champa so compelling isn't just its gold or its fall, it's the way its legacy lingers. The Cham people still preserve their language and traditions, a living thread connecting past to present. And as technology like ground-penetrating radar improves, who knows what secrets might emerge from the earth? This isn't just a story about a vanished kingdom. It's a reminder that even the grandest civilizations can leave echoes, and sometimes those echoes lead us to rediscover worlds we thought were lost forever. If there was ever a city that embodied the blurred line between Marco Polo's world and ours, it was Katigara. Described as the final stop on his eastern journey, this port was said to mark the edge of civilization, a place where the ocean stretched endlessly and traders from distant lands converged. Polo's account placed it in Southeast Asia, but the details were tantalizingly vague. He spoke of ships laden with pearls and spices, of merchants speaking languages no European had heard, and of a skyline dotted with towers that shimmered in the tropical sun. Yet despite these vivid descriptions, Katigara vanished from maps within centuries, leaving behind a mystery that would send explorers spiraling down the wrong continents for generations. The hunt for Katigara became one of history's greatest geographical puzzles. Early cartographers, clinging to Polo's words, mistakenly plotted it near South America, an error that persisted until the 16th century. Some even argue this mix-up fueled Columbus's belief that he'd reached Asia when he landed in the Caribbean, but modern scholars have pieced together a different theory. Archaeological clues, like ancient pottery shards bearing Chinese and Southeast Asian designs, or records of monsoon-driven trade routes, point to southern Vietnam or Cambodia as the likely location. The Mekong Delta, with its network of waterways, would have been a natural hub for the kind of bustling commerce Polo described. Yet no ruins bear Katigara's name, and local chronicles from the period make no mention of it. This absence raises a provocative question. Did Polo actually visit Katigara, or was it a second-hand tale woven into his narrative? Some historians suggest he might have confused it with another port like Oc Eo, a once thriving trade center in Vietnam's Mekong region. Excavations there reveal a multicultural melting pot, with Roman coins, Indian statues, and Persian glass evidence of a city that could match Polo's account. But without a smoking gun, like an inscription bearing Katigara's name, the truth remains just out of reach. What makes this mystery so compelling isn't just the lost city itself, but what it represents. Katigara symbolizes the limits of medieval knowledge, the point where the known world dissolved into rumor and legend. For Polo, it was the horizon. For us, it's a reminder of how much history is built on fragments and educated guesses. Every sunken shipwreck or unearthed artifact in Southeast Asia could be a clue, waiting to tip the scales from myth to reality. And until that day comes, Katigara lingers in the shadows, a ghost city that continues to challenge what we think we know about the past. In the vast, shifting sands of the Taklamakan Desert, few places embody the fragility of civilization like Lop Nur. Marco Polo described it as a lifeline, a shimmering oasis where caravans paused to drink beneath towering poplar trees, their branches heavy with fruit. This wasn't just a watering hole, it was a bustling crossroads where Persian merchants traded turquoise for Chinese silk, where Buddhist monks shared stories with Nestorian Christians, and where the very air hummed with languages from across the known world. Yet today, Lop Nur is a ghostly salt flat, its lifeblood evaporated into the relentless desert winds. How could a place so vital simply vanish? The answer lies in the dance of rivers and time. Lop Nur sat at the mercy of the Tarim River, a wandering waterway that shifted course over centuries. Ancient maps show the oasis swelling and shrinking like a heartbeat, its fate tied to the river's whims. But by the 14th century, the waters began to retreat slowly at first, then all at once. Climate change played its part, with droughts squeezing the region like a vise. The final blow came when human hands diverted what little water remained for farmland upstream. By the time European explorers arrived in the 19th century, they found only cracked earth and the bleached bones of abandoned settlements. Yet Lop Nur's story isn't just one of loss. Satellite images have revealed something astonishing: the faint outlines of ancient roads radiating from the dried lakebed like spokes on a wheel. These phantom paths hint at a network of trade routes far more extensive than historians once believed. And in 2007, archaeologists unearthed a wooden tablet near the site, a 2,000-year-old shopping list scribbled in Kharosthi script, proof of the multicultural exchange Polo witnessed. Even more tantalizing are local legends of a sunken city beneath the salt crust. its walls supposedly lined with lapis lazuli. Modern surveys have detected unnatural shapes buried deep underground, but the harsh environment makes excavation nearly impossible. What makes Lop Nur so haunting isn't just its disappearance, but how it mirrors our own world. This was a place undone by environmental shifts and human choices, a warning etched into the desert floor. As climate scientists study its demise, they see eerie parallels to modern water crises. Yet there's also hope. Recent efforts to restore parts of the Tarim Basin have shown glimpses of revival, with stubborn patches of green pushing through the salt. Perhaps Lop Nur's greatest lesson isn't about endings, but resilience. Even in silence, the desert remembers. Of all the cities Marco Polo painted with his words, few shimmer with as much intrigue as Kanbalu. Nestled near what is now Beijing, this wasn't just another stop on his journey. It was the summer capital of Kublai Khan's Yuan dynasty, a place where Mongol rulers escaped the heat in sprawling palaces cooled by ingenious water systems. Polo's descriptions bring it to life. Streets wide enough for 10 horsemen to ride abreast, walls adorned with dragon carvings, and gardens so vast they seem to merge with the wilderness beyond. Yet today, Kanbalu is a ghost, its exact location swallowed by time. How could a city so grand simply dissolve into the earth? Theories about its fate are as tangled as the roots of the ancient oaks that once shaded its courtyards. Some scholars argue Kanbalu was never lost at all, that it simply evolved. Its bones absorbed into the fabric of later cities like Daidu, which became part of modern Beijing. Excavations near the old Yuan capital have revealed fragments of grand infrastructure, canals, temples, and even a network of roads that match Polo's accounts. But others insist Kanbalu met a more dramatic end. Historical records hint at earthquakes that rocked the region in the 14th century, toppling walls and rerouting rivers. Then there's the shadow of war. The Yuan dynasty's collapse was bloody, and rebel armies might have razed the city to erase the Khan's legacy. What makes the search for Kanbalu so gripping isn't just the mystery, it's the stakes. Finding it could rewrite our understanding of the Yuan dynasty's sophistication. Polo wrote of a hydraulic system that channeled mountain springs through the palace floors, a marvel of engineering that predated European plumbing by centuries. If uncovered, it could reveal how Mongol rulers blended steppe traditions with Chinese innovation. Recent LiDAR scans have revealed unnatural mounds near Beijing's outskirts, their geometric precision hinting at buried structures. And then there's the folklore. Local farmers still speak of plowing up glazed tiles and strange metalwork, artifacts that vanish into private collections before archaeologists can study them. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue lies in an overlooked detail from Polo's writings. He described a hill of stars, a terraced garden where astronomers tracked celestial movements. Modern researchers have cross-referenced his descriptions with Yuan-era star charts, narrowing the search to a valley northwest of Beijing. If correct, the real Kanbalu might lie not under urban sprawl, but beneath layers of sediment from a long-dried river. Every shard of pottery, every unearthed foundation stone is a whisper from the past, urging us to look closer. Because Kanbalu isn't just a lost city, it's a key to understanding how empires rise, adapt, and sometimes vanish without a trace. If Marco Polo's travels had a crown jewel, it might well have been Zayton. The port we now call Gwangju wasn't just a city. It was a symphony of commerce, culture, and engineering that left even the well-traveled Venetian breathless. Picture ships from Persia, India, and Arabia jostling in its harbor, their hulls heavy with frankincense, pearls, and the finest Song dynasty porcelain. Towering pagodas watched over streets where Muslim merchants haggled with Buddhist monks, while silk-clad officials recorded transactions in ledgers that stretched from one end of the known world to the other. This was more than a trading hub. It was the beating heart of the maritime Silk Road, a place where continents converged. Yet today, Zayton's grandeur hides in plain sight. Modern Ganjou sprawls over its ancient foundations, but if you know where to look, the past whispers through the cracks. The Kayuan temple still stands, its stone carvings bearing traces of the Hindu and Nestorian Christian influences that once flourished here. The Qingjing Mosque, one of China's oldest, rises like a ghost from Polo's era, its Arabic inscriptions weathered but legible, a testament to the Islamic traders who called this city home. But the real mystery lies beneath the pavement. In 2021, construction crews unearthed a network of Song-era docks, their timbers preserved by centuries of mud. The discovery confirmed Polo's account of a harbor so vast it could dock 10,000 vessels at once. What makes Zayton's disappearance so poignant isn't just the loss of architecture, but the fading of its cosmopolitan spirit. At its peak, this was a city where religions coexisted peacefully, where foreign merchants could rise to positions of power, and where innovations like nautical compasses and shipbuilding techniques were honed to perfection. Then, in the 14th century, the Ming dynasty turned inward, banning private maritime trade. Zayton's docks fell silent, its multicultural neighborhoods scattered to the winds. The hunt for Zayton's secrets is far from over. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed anomalies beneath the city's university, potential remnants of the Office of Foreign Trade Polo described, where goods were taxed and catalogued. Local fishermen still pull up medieval anchors and pottery shards in their nets, while historians scour Ming-era novels for clues, passing fictional accounts for grains of truth. One tantalizing lead, a 14th-century shipwreck discovered nearby, its cargo of spices and cobalt blue glass matching Polo's descriptions of Zayton's imports. Perhaps the greatest enigma is why such a pivotal city faded from global memory. Unlike Venice or Alexandria, Zayton's name vanished from maps, surviving only in scholars' footnotes. Yet every broken teacup or half-buried warehouse foundation hints at a larger story waiting to be told. Because Zayton wasn't just a port, it was proof that the medieval world was far more connected than we often imagine. And with each new discovery, we're one step closer to hearing its voices again. Deep in the mist-shrouded hills of Yunnan, Marco Polo's descriptions of Carajan paint a picture of a land where prosperity grew as abundantly as the rice in its terraced fields. He wrote of towns humming with activity, their markets stocked with salt, gold, and rare spices, where the air carried the scent of tea leaves drying in the sun. This wasn't just another stop on his journey. It was a thriving province, a crossroads of cultures where Tibetan traders bartered with Burmese jewelers and Chinese officials, kept meticulous records on bamboo scrolls. Yet today, the name Carajan has all but vanished from maps, its settlements swallowed by time and tangled vegetation. How could a place so vibrant slip into the shadows of history? The answer may lie in the very landscape that once made Carajan flourish. Yunnan's rugged terrain, with its steep valleys and winding rivers, preserved the region's independence for centuries. The kingdom of Dali, which some scholars believe Polo referred to as Carajan, was a melting pot of Bai, Yi, and Han peoples, its rulers forging alliances through marriage and trade rather than conquest. But this isolation also made it fragile. When the Mongol armies swept through in the 13th century, they dismantled Dali's power structure, scattering its elites and redrawing trade routes. Over time, the town's Polo marveled at places he claimed had more towers than rooftops, faded into obscurity, their wooden structures rotting back into the earth. Yet Carajan's legacy isn't entirely lost. In the village of Shaxi, a cobblestone square still bears the grooves of countless caravan wheels, a silent testament to its days as a tea-horse road outpost. Nearby, the three pagodas of Dolly stand defiant against earthquakes and wars, their gold-leafed spires echoing Polo's accounts of temples that touch the clouds. Archaeologists have uncovered even subtler clues, fragments of Persian cobalt glass in ancient trash heaps, suggesting trade links stretching to the Middle East, and Song dynasty coins minted specifically for border trade, their inscriptions naming long-forgotten markets. The real mystery, though, lies beneath Yunnan's emerald hills. Local farmers speak of stumbling upon overgrown staircases leading nowhere and strange, squared stones in their fields, possible remnants of the great towns Polo described. Satellite imagery has revealed geometric patterns near the Mekong River, hinting at buried foundations. But the region's volatile geology makes excavation treacherous. Landslides and erosion may have erased entire settlements without a trace. What makes Carajan so compelling isn't just its disappearance, but the questions it forces us to ask. Was it truly a unified kingdom, or a collection of semi-independent city-states Polo lumped together? Did its people assimilate into neighboring cultures, or do their descendants still preserve fragments of Carajan's traditions? In the weekly markets of Yunnan, whereby women wear headdresses resembling those in 800-year-old frescoes, the past feels tantalizingly close. Every unearthed artifact, a jade pendant, a rusted horse bit, is a whisper from a world Marco Polo saw at its zenith, a reminder that even the most bustling places can dissolve into legend, waiting for the right clues to bring them back to light. Marco Polo's account of Tenduck reads like something torn from the pages of a medieval fantasy, a city ruled by the descendants of Prester John, the legendary Christian king who haunted European imaginations for centuries. Nestled somewhere along the Silk Road, Tenduck was said to be a beacon of faith in a pagan world, its churches standing tall amidst Buddhist temples and Islamic minarets. Polo described its people as a mix of Nestorian Christians and Mongol tribes, their ruler a direct heir to Prester John's mythical kingdom. Yet despite these vivid details, Tenduck remains a ghost. No ruins bear its name, no local chronicles mention it, and even the most determined archaeologists have come up empty-handed. So why does this phantom city linger so stubbornly in history's shadows? The mystery begins with Prester John himself. By Polo's time, this fabled Christian monarch had been the stuff of European obsession for over 100 years. Rumors placed his kingdom everywhere from Ethiopia to India, a utopia where pepper grew like wildflowers and rivers ran with gemstones. When Polo claimed to have found Prester John's descendants in Tenduck, it wasn't just travelogue, it was the medieval equivalent of a bombshell headline. But here's the twist. Scholars now believe Polo might have been weaving truth with wishful thinking. Nestorian Christianity did flourish along the Silk Road, evidenced by tombstones and church ruins from Kyrgyzstan to China. And the Mongol royal family included Christian converts like Sorkaktoni, mother of Kublai Khan. Could Polo have encountered a Mongol noble claiming descent from a saintly king and spun it into the Prester John legend? Pinpointing Tenduck's location only deepens the enigma. Some historians argue for Inner Mongolia, pointing to Polo's description of its Great Plains and proximity to the Khan's capital. Others insist it matches the Tangut region near Gansu, where Nestorian communities thrived before the Mongol conquests. The most tantalizing theory places it in the Tian Shan Mountains, where a 14th century map labeled Tenduck appears near modern-day Xinjiang. But expeditions to these areas have yielded no definitive proof, just fragments of Nestorian crosses and ambiguous carvings that could belong to any of a dozen lost settlements. What makes Tenduck so fascinating isn't just its elusiveness, but what it reveals about how medieval travelers made sense of the unfamiliar. Polo's Europe craved stories of Christian outposts in the East, and Tenduck fit perfectly, a bridge between their world and the exotic lands he described. Modern technology might yet uncover clues. Recent LiDAR scans in Central Asia have revealed ancient city grids invisible to the naked eye. Until then, Tenduck remains a puzzle wrapped in a legend, a reminder that sometimes the line between history and myth is as shifting as the sands along the Silk Road. Beneath the turquoise waves of the Persian Gulf, the bones of a once great city slumber in silence. This was Old Hormuz, the bustling port Marco Polo praised as a jewel of maritime trade, a place where pearls the size of hazelnuts changed hands, where merchants from Egypt to India haggled over saffron and sandalwood beneath vaulted bazaars. In its prime, the city was so wealthy that travelers claimed its rulers paved streets with silver dust to honor visiting dignitaries. Yet by the 14th century, Hormuz had vanished, not just from maps but from the very shoreline it once dominated. Today, its drowned ruins whisper of a catastrophe that reshaped the region's destiny. The story of Old Hormuz is written in salt water and shifting sands. Founded in antiquity, the city thrived as a gateway between East and West, its harbor crowded with dhows carrying silks to Baghdad and spices to Venice. Polo described its towers gleaming in the sun, their reflections dancing on the Gulf's calm waters, but prosperity made it a target. In the early 1300s, Mongol raids left its walls crumbling, while a creeping enemy rising sea levels slowly swallowed its docks. By 1320, survivors had fled to a barren island 40 miles away, founding New Hormuz. The original city sank beneath the waves, its memory preserved only in sailors' tales. What makes this sunken port so haunting isn't just its fate, but how close we are to touching its past. In 2012, a storm churned up the seabed near modern-day Minab, revealing pottery shards and a stone anchor. Local divers brought up coins minted under the Ilkhanate, the very dynasty Polo served. Then, in 2019, satellite imagery detected unnatural shapes beneath shallow waters, grid-like patterns that could be foundations or canals. Marine archaeologists face daunting challenges: strong currents, shifting sediments, and the political complexities of working in the Strait of Hormuz. Yet every artifact pulled from the murk tells a story. A fragment of Chinese celadon proves Polo's claim of trade with the Yuan dynasty. A rusted astrolabe hints at the navigational prowess that made this port legendary. The real revelation, though, lies in what Old Hormuz represents: a warning from history. Studies of its submerged ruins show how climate shifts and rising waters doomed the city centuries before the term global warming existed. Coral now grows where camels once carried goods to waiting ships, a silent testament to nature's power. But there's hope in the hunt. New sonar technology has mapped potential structures over 12 acres, suggesting much of the city may remain intact beneath the seabed. Imagine what waits to be found: shipwrecks laden with treasures, the lost palace of its kings, or even records of the daily lives Polo witnessed. Old Hormuz isn't just a relic. It's a bridge between our world and Marco Polo's, a reminder that even the mightiest cities are at the mercy of time and tide. And as each wave rolls over its hidden streets, it teases us with secrets still waiting to surface. Marco Polo's description of Kerman feels like stepping into a Persian miniature, painting a city where the air hummed with the clink of jewelers' hammers and the rustle of silk robes brushing against rose bushes. He wrote of artisans crafting turquoise-encrusted daggers so sharp they could slice a floating feather, and gardens so lush they defied the surrounding desert. Yet the Kerman he knew isn't the one you'd find on a map today. modern streets sprawl over its medieval bones, leaving archaeologists to piece together fragments of a golden age when this was the beating heart of the Silk Road's southern branch. What makes Old Kerman so elusive isn't just the passage of time, it's the city's own resilience. Unlike settlements abandoned to the elements, Kerman endured earthquakes, Mongol invasions, and shifting trade routes, each layer of rebuilding burying the past deeper. Recent ground-penetrating radar near the Friday Mosque revealed anomalies suggesting a network of subterranean canals, echoing Polo's accounts of ingenious qanats that turned the desert into an oasis. Then there's the pottery. In 2021, a sewer renovation unearthed 12th century shards painted with peacock motifs, identical to ones Polo described being sold in bazaars. These aren't just artifacts, they're breadcrumbs leading back to a world where Kerman's lapis lazuli was prized from Venice to Zayton. The real breakthrough came when historians cross-referenced Polo's journals with caravan manifests found in a Cairo synagogue storeroom. These fragile papers listed Kerman as a hub for white wool, likely the legendary shawls woven from mountain goat fleece so fine they could pass through a ring. Satellite imagery has since traced ghostly caravan tracks radiating from the city's outskirts, routes that match Polo's notes about 7 roads where no man walks without silver in his purse. But the most tantalizing clue lies in a nondescript field northeast of town. Local farmers have long complained of their plows snagging on buried brick. Initial digs there uncovered a sprawling caravanserai, its walls still scorched from what might have been the Mongol sacking Polo narrowly escaped. Kerman's greatest secret, though, might be hiding in plain sight. The city's current bazaar follows the same winding path it did 7 centuries ago, its vaulted ceilings concealing original Seljuk-era brickwork. Walk its alleys today, and you'll see the same play of light Polo described, sunbeams filtering through wooden graters to dapple piles of saffron and cumin. The difference: modern merchants haggle over mobile phones instead of musk, oblivious to the history beneath their feet. That's the magic of Kerman, a city that never truly vanished, but simply folded its past into the present, waiting for us to notice. Xanadu wasn't just a palace, it was a manifesto in stone and water, a declaration that even the nomadic Mongols could craft a paradise rooted in one place. Marco Polo's breathless accounts paint a scene straight from a silk tapestry: marble pavilions draped with vines, hunting grounds stocked with white stags, and a pleasure dome so lavish it inspired Coleridge's opium-fueled poetry centuries later. This was Kublai Khan's summer retreat, where the ruler who conquered China came to remember the open skies of his ancestors. Yet for all its splendor, Xanadu's physical traces are frustratingly faint. The ruins discovered in Inner Mongolia's grasslands reveal mere whispers of what once stood. A foundation here, a dragon-carved pillar there. The real wonder isn't just what's been lost, but how much might still be waiting beneath the steppes' golden grasses. Recent excavations have peeled back layers of the site with the delicacy of unwrapping a medieval scroll. Archaeologists mapping the foundations uncovered something extraordinary: the remnants of an artificial lake, its contours matching Polo's description of a shimmering centerpiece where the Khan floated on gilded barges. Even more telling are the flecks of color clinging to broken tiles, hints of the vibrant murals that once adorned the walls, depicting scenes from Mongol epics. But the most tantalizing discovery came in 2019, when ground-penetrating radar detected a series of underground chambers near the palace's heart. Could these be the storied treasure vaults Polo mentioned, where Kublai hoarded gifts from vassal kingdoms, or perhaps the scriptorium where scribes recorded the empire's affairs on scrolls that might still survive, preserved by the dry steppe air? The mystery deepens when you consider what made Xanadu unique: Unlike the Forbidden City or Karakoram, this wasn't a seat of power but a deliberate fusion of cultures. Chinese gardeners designed its landscapes, Persian architects sketched its domes, and Tibetan lamas consecrated its temples. Polo wrote of a hall where the Khan entertained ambassadors beneath a ceiling inlaid with stars, each constellation crafted from gems corresponding to their celestial brightness. That very description led researchers to a collapsed structure in 2022, where they unearthed fragments of lapis lazuli and carnelian, likely remnants of that stellar map. What truly haunts historians, though, is Xanadu's abrupt abandonment. After Kublai's death in 1294, the Yuan dynasty began its slow collapse, and the palace faded from memory. Unlike cities destroyed by war or natural disaster, Xanadu was simply forgotten. The grasslands crept over its gardens, and nomads repurposed its stones for sheep pens. Yet local herders still speak of finding porcelain shards after heavy rains, and satellite imagery shows unnatural geometric patterns stretching far beyond the excavated zone. Some scholars believe most of Xanadu lies unexcavated, its greatest treasures protected not by locks, but by the vastness of the Mongolian plains. Perhaps the most poignant clue comes from an unexpected source: tree rings. Core samples taken from ancient oaks near the site show a period of rapid growth in the late 13th century, suggesting extensive irrigation, proof of the engineered oasis Polo described. Then around 1350, the rings narrow abruptly. The water stopped flowing, the gardens withered, and Xanadu became a dream preserved in ink and memory. But dreams have a way of lingering. With every summer storm that washes away another layer of soil, with every drone survey that reveals hidden structures, we're reminded that the line between legend and history is as thin as the silk that once draped Kublai Khan's halls. And sometimes, just sometimes, the earth gives up its secrets. Beneath the neon-lit skyscrapers and bustling hutongs of modern Beijing lies a ghost, a city Marco Polo knew as Daidu, the glittering capital of Kublai Khan's empire. Imagine walking the same streets where the Venetian once gaped at palaces, so vast their roofs seemed to touch the clouds, where Persian astronomers and Tibetan monks rubbed shoulders in markets fragrant with sandalwood and salt. Today, only scattered relics whisper of that golden age: the drum tower's weathered timbers, the bell tower's echoing chimes, fragments of city walls swallowed by apartment complexes. But Daidu wasn't just erased, it was transformed, layer by layer, its Mongol soul hidden beneath centuries of Ming and Qing rebuilding. The hunt for Daidu is a puzzle played out in library archives and subway construction sites. When workers digging Beijing's Line 6 unearthed a stretch of medieval roadbed in 2012, archaeologists recognized the distinctive earth nails, iron rods hammered into the soil to stabilize foundations, a technique Polo described with awe. Nearby, ground-penetrating radar revealed the outlines of Kublai's pleasure gardens, their artificial lakes now buried under parking lots. But the most tantalizing clues come from unexpected places. A 14th-century Korean scroll discovered in a Seoul monastery depicts Daidu's layout with startling precision: triple-ringed walls, a central axis aligning with the North Star, and canals that once carried gondola-like boats through the city. What makes Daidu's disappearance so fascinating isn't just the physical loss, but the cultural metamorphosis it represents. The Yuan dynasty's capital was a deliberate fusion of Mongol steppe traditions and Chinese urban planning. Polo wrote of a palace where nomads could practice archery indoors, its halls lined with jurs disguised behind lacquered screens. Recent excavations near the Forbidden City uncovered hoof prints preserved in ancient mortar, likely from the horses of Khan's guards trotting across wet pavement. Yet after the Ming overthrew the Yuan in 1368, they systematically dismantled this hybrid identity. Daidu's Mongol name was scrubbed from records, its layout altered to fit Confucian ideals of order. The real mystery lies in what might still survive underground. LiDAR scans suggest entire neighborhoods remain intact beneath Beijing's financial district, their grid patterns matching Polo's accounts of streets straight as arrows. In 2019, renovators peeling back layers of a Ming-era temple found Yuan dynasty frescoes depicting camel caravans unloading spices, proof that Daidu's cosmopolitan spirit lingers in the very bones of the city. Even the name holds clues. Beijing means northern capital, but locals still use the older term Dadu Cheng, city of the great capital, in hushed tones when pointing archaeologists to hidden cellars or odd-shaped bricks. Perhaps the most poignant relic isn't made of stone or silk but words. A Yuan-era cookbook salvaged from a Dunhuang cave lists dishes Polo likely tasted: lamb stewed with saffron, pear juice fermented with rose petals. These flavors, like the echoes of Daidu itself, refuse to fade completely. They remind us that cities aren't just built and destroyed, but constantly reborn, carrying fragments of their past into the future. And sometimes, if you listen closely between the honking cars and construction drills, you can almost hear the hoofbeats of Kublai Khan's messengers racing down a vanished avenue, their shadows stretching across 8 centuries. Marco Polo's description of Suzhou would make any Venetian feel at home, a labyrinth of shimmering canals crisscrossing beneath arched stone bridges, their reflections broken by the rhythmic dip of silk merchants' paddles. He called it the Venice of the East, but that barely captures the scale of its ambition. This wasn't just a city built on water. It was a machine engineered for commerce, with locks controlling flow to prevent flooding, and artificial islands housing workshops where artisans spun thread so fine it was said to float on air. Today, modern Suzhou's skyscrapers and highways obscure that medieval marvel, leaving archaeologists to piece together its past like detectives reconstructing a drowned world. The search begins beneath the tourist-thronged streets of the old town. In 2018, workers repairing a sewer line stumbled upon a section of Song Dynasty canal lining, perfectly preserved oak planks held together with iron clamps, their surfaces worn smooth by centuries of boat traffic. Nearby, ground-penetrating radar revealed a network of subterranean channels branching like veins beneath shopping malls and apartment blocks. These watery ghosts hint at a system far more extensive than historical records suggested, one that may have connected Suzhou's famed silk atolls directly to the Grand Canal's trade routes. But here's the twist: Polo's accounts mention 12,000 bridges, a number long dismissed as exaggeration until researchers cross-referenced Ming-era tax ledgers and realized he might have been counting private courtyard crossings. What makes Suzhou's disappearance so fascinating isn't just the physical transformation, but the cultural erasure. The city Polo saw was a symphony of specialized neighborhoods, dyers' quarters where indigo vats turned the canals blue, floating markets where tea merchants sampled leaves from bamboo rafts, and the legendary Street of 1,000 Looms, where the clatter of wooden machines echoed day and night. Fragments survive in unexpected places. A 14th-century map, rediscovered in a Tokyo museum, labels an area north of the city walls as Foreigners' Wharf, likely the hub where Persian and Arab traders bartered for silk. Then there's the silk itself. Chemical analysis of Yuan dynasty fabrics in European collections trace their dyes to Suzhou's unique mineral springs, confirming Polo's claim that its colors outshone the rainbow. The real breakthrough, though, may lie in the city's living traditions. Master weavers in Suzhou still use techniques unchanged since Polo's time, their foot-operated looms producing brocades with patterns matching those described in his journals. Archaeologists now work alongside these artisans, comparing their workshop layouts to anomalies detected beneath modern buildings. One such collaboration led to the 2021 discovery of a submerged courtyard near Tiger Hill, its stone basins still stained with traces of mulberry bark used for softening silk threads. Suzhou's greatest secret might be hiding in plain sight. The city's famous humble administrator's garden, a Ming-era masterpiece, sits atop what was once the Khan's imperial silk depot. Recent excavations beneath its ornamental ponds uncovered ceramic weights stamped with Yuan dynasty seals, identical to ones Polo mentioned seeing loaded onto tribute barges. It's a reminder that even as cities evolve, their past lingers, not just in ruins but in the rhythms of daily life. The clack of a loom, the scent of wet stone by a canal, the way sunlight filters through willow branches. These are the threads connecting Marco Polo's Suzhou to ours, waiting to be woven back into history's tapestry. Yongzhou's story begins with a tantalizing claim buried in Marco Polo's writings, that for 3 years he governed this thriving port along the Grand Canal. Picture a city where Persian merchants unloaded carpets beside Vietnamese spice traders, where the clatter of abacuses mingled with the songs of tea pickers hauling baskets to waiting barges. Polo described a metropolis of 10,000 bridges, its warehouses bursting with porcelain destined for palaces as far away as Cairo. Yet today, while Yongzhou still stands, the medieval marvel he knew has dissolved into myth. No official records confirm his governorship, and the landmarks he praised, like the towering pagoda where foreign envoys paid tribute, exist only as faint echoes in local folklore. The mystery deepens when you examine the physical traces. Excavations near the ancient canal docks have uncovered fragments of a cosmopolitan past. Arabic-inscribed tombstones, shards of Byzantine glass, and even a cache of Roman coins threaded onto a silk ribbon. These discoveries confirm Yongzhou's role as a global hub, but Polo's personal connection remains elusive. Some scholars argue he might have served as a tax official rather than a full governor, a role that would explain his detailed knowledge of trade tariffs but leave little bureaucratic paper trail. Others point to a surviving Yuan dynasty ledger that lists a foreign advisor named Marco Polo, a name startlingly close to Polo's Venetian dialect. Could this be him, hidden in plain sight? Beneath Yongzhou's modern avenues lies a more intriguing puzzle. Ground-penetrating radar has mapped a grid of submerged foundations near the old city walls, their layout matching Polo's descriptions of merchant quarters organized by nationality. In 2020, construction workers digging a subway line broke through into a 13th-century cellar. Its walls lined with ceramic jars still sealed with wax, their contents testing positive for fermented tea and peppercorns. The find aligns perfectly with Polo's account of inspecting spice warehouses, yet no plaque or inscription bears his name. The real enigma isn't whether Polo walked these streets, evidence suggests he did, but why Yongzhou's golden age faded so completely. Climate shifts in the 14th century saw the Grand Canal silt up, diverting trade to rival ports. The Ming dynasty's later isolationism severed Yongzhou's global ties, leaving its multicultural neighborhoods to dissolve into obscurity. Today, the city's memory survives in subtle ways. The flaky layers of Yongzhou fried rice, said to mimic the pages of ledger books, or the annual Lantern Festival where children carry paper boats honoring long-forgotten trading partners. Perhaps the most poignant clue lies in an overlooked detail from Polo's account. He wrote of a moonlit feast where merchants toasted with cups carved from dragon's teeth, likely fossilized ivory from woolly mammoths, prized as magical talismans. In 2022, archaeologists excavating a medieval garbage dump found just such a cup, its base inscribed with a single word in shaky Chinese, stranger. It's a whisper across 7 centuries, hinting at a cosmopolitan world where a Venetian adventurer might indeed have left his mark not in official records, but in the small, strange artifacts that refuse to be forgotten. Marco Polo's description of Pagan reads like a scene from a celestial dream, a city where the morning mist clung to thousands of temple spires, their gilded peaks catching the first light like a field of golden spears piercing the heavens. He wrote of monks chanting in languages as old as the Irrawaddy River, of markets where Chinese lacquerware traded hands beside rubies the color of pigeon's blood. Today, the plains of Bagan still bristle with over 2,000 surviving stupas, but these are mere fragments of the metropolis Polo saw at its zenith. When the Mongols swept through in the 13th century, they shattered not just Pagan's walls, but its very soul, turning a living capital into a silent necropolis of brick and devotion. Beneath the tourist trails and restored pagodas lies a deeper mystery. Recent LiDAR scans have revealed something astonishing: the ghostly outlines of an urban grid stretching far beyond the temple zone. These buried streets hint at a city twice as large as historians believed, with neighborhoods that once housed potters, weavers, and scribes now sleeping under rice fields. In 2020, archaeologists peeling back layers of stucco at the Ananda temple uncovered frescoes depicting scenes Polo might have witnessed: Mongol envoys bearing tribute, Persian merchants weighing silver on scales. But the real revelation came from the temple's hidden foundation chamber. Nestled beneath the Buddha's feet, they found palm leaf manuscripts describing pagans, water palaces, elaborate reservoirs that once turned this arid plain into a garden. Satellite imagery now suggests these hydraulic marvels may still exist, their channels silted over but intact. What makes Pagan's decline so haunting isn't just the violence of its fall, but the grace of its afterlife. Unlike cities razed to the ground, Pagan was abandoned slowly, its people drifting away like the river's shifting currents. The stupas weren't forgotten, they were repurposed. Farmers stored grain in their vaulted chambers, lovers whispered secrets in moonlit alcoves. Even the Mongols, who toppled Pagan's dynasty, became its unlikely preservers, adopting the city as a pilgrimage site. This cultural alchemy left behind clues modern researchers are only beginning to decipher. Take the Gordopalan temple. Its brickwork shows 3 distinct phases: original Mon craftsmanship, hurried repairs after an earthquake, and then crude Mongol patches where horse archers tried and failed to replicate delicate floral motifs. The greatest secrets may lie in what Pagan's builders intentionally concealed. Local legends speak of hollow statues filled with jewels, their locations encoded in cryptic murals. In 2022, conservators restoring the Damayangi temple tapped a Buddha image and heard a hollow echo. CT scans revealed a cavity containing not treasure, but something far more precious: bundles of birch bark inscribed with lost Paiyu poetry, the oldest known literature in Myanmar. Elsewhere, thermal cameras have detected anomalies in temple walls, suggesting hidden chambers yet to be explored. Perhaps the most poignant reminder of Pagan's golden age isn't in its grand monuments, but in the small, everyday artifacts surfacing after monsoon rains. A child's terracotta whistle shaped like a parrot, a broken scale weight engraved with a Chola dynasty seal, a single teak plank salvaged from a monastery ruin, bearing the grooves of countless bare feet walking the same path for 700 years. These fragments whisper of a city that wasn't just a collection of temples, but a living, breathing crossroads of cultures, one that Marco Polo glimpsed in its twilight, and that we're only now learning to see in full color. Along the shifting shores of the Caspian Sea, Marco Polo's account of Samandar dangles like a puzzle wrapped in salt spray. He described a port so vital to the Silk Road's northern spur that caravans would detour for weeks just to unload their silks onto ships bound for Persia and beyond. The city's docks, he claimed, groaned under the weight of honey and wax from Russian forests, while its markets teemed with merchants haggling over Caspian pearls the size of chickpeas. Yet today, Samandar's very existence is a debate among historians. Was it the walled fortress of Derbent we know today, or a settlement now lost beneath the waves? The mystery begins with geography. Polo placed Samandar a day's ride from the Iron Gates, a narrow pass traditionally identified with Derbent's ancient walls. But here's the catch. Derbent sits nearly 2 miles inland today, its medieval harbor long silted over by the Sulak River's relentless sediment. Coastal erosion along the Caspian is relentless. Satellite studies show shorelines retreating up to 15 feet per year in some areas. Could Samandar have been one of the casualties? Divers exploring near Derbent's outskirts have found submerged stone anchors and pottery shards bearing the distinctive pitting of centuries underwater, tantalizing hints that the sea may hold the answer. Then there's the cultural enigma. Polo wrote of Samandar's fire-worshipping temples, a detail that aligns with Zoroastrian communities known to thrive in the Caucasus. Yet Derbent's archaeological record leans heavily toward Jewish and Muslim heritage, leaving scholars to wonder if another settlement entirely once hugged these shores. A breakthrough came in 2018 when a storm exposed a section of collapsed masonry near the village of Akti. Carved into the stones were symbols resembling the sacred flames Polo described, alongside graffiti in a dialect of Persian traded only along 13th century Caspian routes. The most compelling clue, though, might lie in the seabed itself. Recent sonar surveys have revealed unnatural ridges about half a mile off Derbent's coast, linear formations too precise to be natural. Marine archaeologists suspect these could be the remains of breakwaters or even a submerged caravanserai, their outlines blurred by centuries of shifting sands. But the Caspian guards its secrets fiercely. Salinity changes and methane seeps make diving treacherous, while political tensions over maritime borders limit exploration. What makes Samandar's ghost so haunting isn't just the possibility of a drowned city, but what its discovery would mean. This wasn't just another trading post, it was the linchpin connecting the Mongol Empire's northern reaches to the Islamic world. Finding it could rewrite our understanding of how goods moved across Eurasia when land routes grew too perilous. Until then, Samandar remains a shimmering mirage on history's horizon, its truth perhaps waiting beneath the next storm's waves or buried in some fisherman's net, tangled among the catch of the day. Marco Polo's camel wasn't just another dot on the Silk Road, it was a lifeline in the harshest of deserts, a place where caravans teetering on the edge of survival could find water, shade, and the sweetest melons in Asia. Today, the modern city of Hami stands near its ruins, but the medieval oasis Polo described remains as elusive as a desert mirage. He wrote of sprawling bazaars where Uyghur and Mongol traders bartered under canopies of dyed felt, their stalls heaped with jade from cotton and musk from Tibet. Yet when archaeologists sweep their trowels across the sun-baked earth, they find only fragments of this bustling crossroads, a shattered ceramic here, a rusted coin there, like breadcrumbs leading to a feast that's long since vanished. What makes Camel so tantalizing isn't just its obscurity, but the contradictions it presents. Polo claimed the city was a Mongol stronghold, yet excavations reveal layers of Uyghur and Tang dynasty occupation beneath proof that this spot had been a coveted oasis for centuries before the Khan's armies arrived. In 2020, a team digging near Hami's outskirts uncovered a charred wooden ledger, its faint ink still listing taxes paid in bolts of silk and bags of salt. The real surprise came when infrared scans revealed older text beneath. Prayers in Sogdian, the lingua franca of Silk Road merchants, suggesting Camel's roots reached back to a time when Rome and Chang'an were still trading partners. Then there's the mystery of its layout. Polo described Camel as a double city, a Mongol garrison separated from the old Uyghur town by a river now lost to shifting sands. Satellite imagery has detected faint lines in the desert that could be ancient canals or roads, but the arid climate plays tricks on sensors. Local herders sometimes stumble upon oddities. A stone pillar carved with faces halfway between Buddhist and Turkic styles, or a cache of arrowheads fused together by centuries of oxidation. The most compelling clue emerged in 2022 when a sandstorm exposed what might be the foundations of a caravanserai, its outline matching Polo's account of long halls where men slept atop their bales of goods. The true heart of Camel's enigma, though, lies beneath the very fruit it's still famous for. Hami melons, those honey-sweet globes prized by Chinese emperors, grow in fields that archaeological surveys suggest were once Camel's bustling suburbs. Core samples taken from irrigation ditches contain pollen grains dating back to Polo's era, alongside something unexpected: traces of cotton, a crop that shouldn't thrive in such arid soil. This tiny detail hints at a forgotten agricultural genius, perhaps underground channels like Persia's Khanats, or microclimates created by strategically planted trees. Whatever the method, it worked well enough to make Camel a legend. Even now, when the wind howls across the Taklamakan, it sometimes scours away just enough sand to reveal another piece of the puzzle: a child's leather shoe, a scrap of paper-thin gold leaf, or the imprint of a wagon wheel that last turned when Marco Polo himself might have watched it pass. Ganjou was the kind of city that could make even a seasoned traveler like Marco Polo pause in wonder. He described it as a glittering jewel in the harsh Gobi desert, a place where camel caravans laden with jade and rhubarb rested beneath towering city walls before braving the northern wastes. The markets here, he claimed, brimmed with goods from across Asia: Tibetan musk, Uyghur grapes, and turquoise from mines so distant their locations were guarded like state secrets. Yet today, the modern city of Shanghai barely hints at this illustrious past. Its medieval skyline of Buddhist pagodas and bustling caravanserais has been replaced by shopping malls and apartment blocks, leaving archaeologists to piece together Ganjou's golden age from fragments scattered beneath parking lots and rice fields. What makes Ganjou's disappearance so intriguing isn't just the scale of its decline, but the precision with which Polo captured its essence. His account mentions a colossal reclining Buddha, a statue so vast, he wrote, that 10 men could dine in its shadow. In 1996, renovations at the giant Buddha temple uncovered exactly that: a 35-meter-long statue dating to the 12th century, its plaster layers still bearing traces of the gold leaf Polo admired. Nearby, workers digging a subway line in 2018 stumbled upon a network of underground grain silos, their capacity matching his descriptions of imperial granaries that could feed the city through years of drought. These aren't just coincidences, they're proof that Ganjou was every bit as magnificent as he claimed. Yet the real mystery lies in what hasn't been found. Polo wrote of a street of 1,000 lanterns, where Persian astrologers cast horoscopes by firelight and Nestorian Christians preached beneath crosses inlaid with sapphires. Modern surveys using ground-penetrating radar have detected anomalies beneath Shanghai's old town: long, straight features that could be the foundations of that very thoroughfare. But the clincher came from an unexpected source: tree rings. Core samples taken from ancient poplars in the city center show a period of rapid growth in the 13th century, followed by abrupt stagnation. This aligns perfectly with historical records of a catastrophic earthquake in 1307, one that toppled Ganjou's walls and diverted the High River, its lifeblood. The irony is that Ganjou's downfall may have preserved its secrets. Unlike cities that evolved continuously, Shanghai's later decline left entire neighborhoods frozen in time. In 2021, archaeologists working in a neglected district uncovered a merchant's courtyard with its 13th century layout intact storage rooms still stacked with camel saddles, a kitchen where carbonized millet cakes sat abandoned in a hearth. Even more telling were the artifacts, a scrap of paper bearing a doodled chess game, a child's woolen mitten lined with sable fur, and a ceramic jar sealed with wax that, when opened, released the faintest scent of long-vanished saffron. These aren't just relics, they're intimate snapshots of the world Polo walked through. Now the race is on to uncover Ganjou's heart before it vanishes completely. Local historians are poring over Ming Dynasty land deeds, cross-referencing them with satellite imagery to locate the fabled Moon Tower, an observatory Polo claimed could predict sandstorms months in advance. Meanwhile, advances in LiDAR technology have revealed ghostly outlines of what might be the Khan's summer palace, hidden beneath a modern university campus. Every clue suggests that Ganjou's medieval splendor isn't lost just waiting, and as each new discovery emerges from the dust, we're reminded that sometimes the greatest cities don't disappear. They simply bide their time, whispering their stories to those willing to listen. Campichu wasn't just a city, it was a symphony in stone and faith, where the whispers of pilgrims and merchants once blended with the desert wind. Marco Polo stood awestruck before its colossal reclining Buddha, a masterpiece so immense he claimed 50 men could stand shoulder to shoulder along its length. Today, that same statue still rests in Shanghai's giant Buddha temple, its golden eyelids half lowered as if dreaming of the vanished world that built it. But the Campichu Polo knew was more than a single wonder. Beyond this sleeping giant lay a labyrinth of monasteries, bustling markets where Tibetan traders bartered yak wool for Tang dynasty silks, and underground canals that turned the Gobai's edge into an improbable oasis. How much of that splendor still lies hidden beneath modern streets? The answer might be buried in the very earth beneath Shanghai's apartment blocks. In 2020, construction workers digging a new subway line uncovered a section of medieval pavement, not just ordinary cobblestones, but a mosaic of multicolored pebbles arranged in intricate mandala patterns. Archaeologists later identified these as remnants of the Path of Enlightenment, a ceremonial walkway Polo described leading to the city's seven-tiered golden pagoda. Nearby, ground-penetrating radar revealed ghostly outlines of circular structures matching his accounts of Mongol yurt palaces, their felt walls replaced long ago by brick, but their distinctive layouts preserved in the soil. What makes Campichu's disappearance so compelling isn't just the physical transformation, but the cultural alchemy that once thrived here. This was where Chinese, Tibetan, and Uyghur traditions collided and merged. Polo wrote of street performers reciting Persian poetry in one alley while Chan Buddhist monks debated metaphysics in the next. Recent excavations at a ruined temple complex yielded a trove of manuscripts, some in Chinese, others in Sanskrit, and a few in a unique hybrid script blending both. Even more telling were the artifacts, a ceramic incense burner shaped like a lotus, its glaze tinged with Central Asian cobalt, and a set of bone dice inscribed with numerals from 3 different counting systems. The greatest mysteries, though, may lie beyond the city walls. Local herders speak of a valley northwest of Shanghai where the ground occasionally gives up strange treasures, fragments of gilded statues, rusted camel bells still stuffed with ancient cotton to mute their sound. Satellite imagery shows unnatural straight lines in this area, suggesting buried structures. Could this be the remains of Campichu's legendary Moon Garden, where Polo claimed astronomers tracked celestial movements from marble platforms, or perhaps the fabled Silent Market, a clandestine trading post where jade from cotton changed hands under cover of darkness? One clue came from an unexpected source: the statue itself. During restoration work in 2022, conservators discovered a hollow chamber behind the Buddha's left ear. Inside lay a parchment scroll, its ink faded but still legible, a 13th century inventory listing donations from merchants across Eurasia. Among the entries was a certain Marco of Venice, who gifted one bolt of crimson damask. It's a tantalizing thread connecting Polo's words to physical proof, reminding us that even the grandest cities are built on countless small, human stories waiting to be unearthed. Karakoram wasn't just a city, it was the beating heart of an empire that stretched from the Pacific to the Mediterranean, a place where the world's riches and ambitions converged under the watchful eyes of Genghis Khan's descendants. Marco Polo described its walls as thick enough to ride 10 horses abreast, its streets teeming with Persian silversmiths, Chinese astronomers, and Russian fur traders who journeyed thousands of miles to pay homage to the great Khan. Yet today, the grasslands of central Mongolia whisper over scattered foundations and the occasional carved stone, all that remains of what was once the nerve center of the largest contiguous empire in history. The irony of Karakoram's fate lies in its brief, blazing significance. Built in 1235 by Urgedei Khan, it served as the Mongol capital for just 40 years before Kublai Khan shifted power to Daidu, modern Beijing. In that short span, it became a crucible of cultures. Excavations have unearthed Nestorian Christian crosses forged alongside Buddhist stupas, fragments of Quranic inscriptions mingled with Chinese porcelain. The most startling discovery came in 2009, when archaeologists uncovered the remains of a kiln capable of firing the city's signature green glazed tiles, a technology borrowed from Central Asia but adapted with Mongol practicality. These tiles once adorned palaces described by Polo as shining like jade, their surfaces catching the firelight during grand feasts where ambassadors from Baghdad to Paris drank from golden cups. Beneath the surface, Karakoram's secrets defy expectations. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed a grid of underground channels, part of an advanced drainage system that kept the city functional during the harsh winters. But the real revelation came from something far simpler: animal bones. Analysis of butchered remains from the palace district shows an astonishing variety, not just the expected horse and sheep, but peacock, sturgeon, even giraffe, proof of the empire's staggering reach. Polo wrote of receiving gifts from lands no Christian had seen, and these bones silently confirm his words. What makes Karakoram's disappearance so poignant isn't just the physical loss, but how thoroughly its spirit endured. After the capital moved, the city didn't crumble, it transformed. The stones of its temples were repurposed for monasteries. Its irrigation systems kept fields fertile for nomadic herders. In 2018, researchers studying satellite images noticed unnatural circular patterns near the ruins. These turned out to be the footprints of thousands of temporary dwellings, evidence that for centuries after its official decline, Karakoram remained a seasonal gathering place for Mongol clans, its legacy living on in memory and tradition. The greatest mystery may lie in what hasn't been found. Despite years of digging, no trace of the legendary silver tree described by Polo has surfaced, a fountain with mechanical lions that spouted mare's milk and wine for the Khan's guests. Some scholars argue it was dismantled and carried to Beijing. Others insist it's still buried, awaiting discovery. recent LiDAR scans have identified a promising anomaly near the Erdene Zoo Monastery, a structure with precise right angles that don't match Buddhist architecture. Could this be the foundation of the Fountains Pavilion, or perhaps the hidden treasury where the Khan kept tribute from conquered kingdoms? Karakoram's story isn't one of abrupt collapse, but of gradual return to the earth from which it sprang. The same grasslands that once fed the Khan's armies now blanket its ruins, their roots cradling fragments of a world where East and West first truly met. Every summer, when the rains wash away another layer of topsoil, new clues emerge: a scrap of parchment in Uyghur script, a child's toy carved from Siberian ivory. These quiet discoveries remind us that even the mightiest empires leave behind not just stones, but stories waiting to be heard again. Marco Polo's lost cities aren't just dots on a faded map, they're living puzzles, each piece whispering secrets about how our world was stitched together. Think about it: every crumbling wall in Yangzhou, every submerged anchor near Hormuz, even the faint caravan tracks leading to Camel, they're all part of the same grand story. A story about spices that crossed continents, ideas that leaped languages, and people who dared to venture beyond the horizon. These cities didn't just vanish, they left behind echoes we're still learning to hear. Take Zayton's harbor, for instance. When divers pull up shards of cobalt blue glass or Yuan dynasty porcelain, they're not just holding broken pottery. They're touching the physical evidence of a time when a Persian trader might have shared a meal with a Chinese official using plates like these. Or consider the tree rings from Ganjou, silently recording the exact moment an earthquake reshaped history. These aren't relics, they're time machines, waiting to transport us back to moments Marco Polo himself witnessed. And that's the magic of these lost cities. They challenge us to see history not as a static page in a textbook, but as a living, breathing network of connections. When satellite imagery reveals a buried street in Suzhou that perfectly matches Polo's description, or when a farmer in Yunnan turns up a coin minted for a king no one's heard of in centuries, it's proof that our past is far richer, far stranger than we ever imagined. So while some of these places may never fully emerge from the shadows, their ruins too scattered, their names too tangled in myth, their legacy is undeniable. They remind us that every explorer, from Polo to the archaeologist sweating under desert suns today, is part of the same human urge to look beyond what we know and ask, what else is out there? Your turn now. Which of these vanished worlds sparks your curiosity? The golden temples of Champa, the star-chasing scholars of Xanadu. Drop your thoughts below, and who knows, maybe your fascination will be the thread that leads to the next great discovery. Thanks for joining this journey through time. Remember, history isn't just about places we've found. It's about those still waiting to be uncovered.